Randie, welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm really good and I'm super excited. It started snowing today here.
Not here. It's just gray. It's been gray here for
Mm.
days.
Yeah, that's usually what's like my Swiss winter situation because I'm not up in the mountains, but it's snowing today. And it's
Snow.
snowing. It hasn't stopped since the morning. So it's really nice.
How many
So I'm
inches do
excited.
they today?
So so that everyone who's tuning in today can get an idea of who you are. Can you briefly walk us through your story, like how you started, how you are the Randie that you are today, the pivotal
Sure.
crossroads, the big moments?
Okay. So I am a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist. I started out as a kid like everybody else, and I loved listening to people. So I decided that I was going to do psychology in some format. And then along the way, I decided that I needed more tools. So I transitioned from being a psychologist, that was my original goal, into doing medicine as well, because medicine gave me more tools so I could listen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can also do therapy, but I can also do medication management.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where medicine came in. And then as I practiced medicine, new avenues came up. I worked in a hospital for a while. Over time, autonomy became less of an opportunity, and I like autonomy. So I opened up a private practice, and I treated primarily children, adolescents, and then they started to grow up, and I started to grow. And then it became women and children. And then I decided that I love treating women, and I began to love treating a group of women in particular, which were women professionals, women physicians in the healthcare community. And burnout and stress became a huge impact as the medical field transitioned into us working smarter, not harder, which really meant we worked harder and smarter. And
Yeah, you got corporatized or corporified or something.
like for patients and all kinds of buzzwords that corporate medicine came in. And administrators increased in numbers drastically, but the number of clinicians did not. And if you look at the increase trajectory, I think across the globe, that you will see that they continue to increase while the number of actually on staff
caretakers,
not. Yet the number of patients increase. So who's
sure.
treating?
Especially like now, still in a pandemic. Especially here, children hospitals are bad.
And
so bad.
Self-preservationally, I left corporate medicine and opened up a private practice so that I could maintain the boundaries that I felt were good for me and good for my patients. And then eventually I felt like, as I watched some of my colleagues implode or on the verge of imploding, I felt like it made sense to help apply or teach them how to apply some of those skills. And so I opened up a second business that helps them learn how to find de-stress techniques, how to create some kind of balance for their life, because we've got one. And if we don't figure out how to enjoy it and live it and be it, then you're kind of spending it working, sleeping, and, going through the motions. And that just seems kind of lame. I lost your volume. Where did you go? Is it me? Did I do it? No, I have sound. No. MacBook, video, select speaker, pro speaker. It's all good. I don't know what happened. It says I'm making noise. It says it's recording. It just disappeared. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, now I hear you.
Hear me?
Yep, you're back. Do you know what changed?
Something with my mic. Let me see.
Okay.
And now can you hear me now or you cannot?
Perfect. Yes, I can
Okay,
hear you.
something was up in my mic. Okay, luckily Lily will edit this out. It's like, hello. Okay, yes. Let me pick up the pieces. Where were we at? Now I'm lost. You finished your introduction, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And then you started to ask me something, and
that's where we broke. And now I have like a complete case of mom brain. And I'm like, what?
Okay. I think it was, I was saying how quality of life, like that you need to.
Oh, yes.
Point.
Yes. Exactly. So thank you so much for bringing up balance. Like, I feel there's so much wellnessy written about balance,
right,
that I feel we overcomplicate what balance means.
Right.
What does having balance in your life mean to you? How do you define balance?
I think it's like making sure you get enough sleep, making sure you have enough fun, making sure there's enough time for the people that you care about, time to be creative and find meaning in the things that you do, that you have enough time to earn the money that you need to enjoy the things that you need to pay your bills. Those are the kind of balances. So it's like meaning, joy, sleep, self-care, nutrition. There are basic needs. There are purposeful needs. There are joyful needs. There are work needs, intellectual needs, right? Those all kind of need to be balanced in some way. And sure, it's nice to go get your nails done, but that's not really self-care. That's a little bit groovy indulgence. But self-care is kind of making sure that you're feeling a sense of purpose, a sense of integration, a sense of social and personal, that you're taking care of your body in some way. And no one's perfect at all of that stuff, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's not about scoring 100% in every category, right?
Correct. It's just moving towards or trying to
be more mindful.
Correct. Right. You know.
Yeah.
And some may be better at some than others, right? So
yeah, and I mean, I know it for myself. Like there are seasons where it's easier to me, like self-care comes easier. I know when I'm like sleep deprived because my son has been sleeping bad, or I have trouble managing my pain, like I'm not eating as well. It's not a constant, right? It fluctuates.
Yeah.
I love what you said, and I think it's such an important distinction about like getting your nails done. Like, yes, it can be self-care, but we tend to have a super, let's call it superficial idea of self-care that's tied to consumerism. Whereas to kind of almost deflect of what real self-care means in terms of like, yes, we have sleeping enough, but that's the easier, like I'd say the healthy types of self-care that are easier, right? Like, okay,
correct,
food, sleep, water. But
those are often forgotten, especially with physicians. Like they often work so hard that they don't even get up to pee. Some of them are like, I'm not drinking a lot of water during the day because it means I have to take a pee break, and I'm back to back with patients. So they're really denying themselves self-care. And somehow or other, they should basically tell their nurse assistant, I need you to make me take a break because I'm not going to do it for myself. Like that would be a boundary that they need to, if they can't create it for themselves, then they need to ask for help. Meanwhile, they're more than capable of saying it for someone else, right? So they would be easy to tell someone, I will advocate for you.
You have to drink more water.
I'm not good at advocating for myself. So sometimes you tell them, make believe you're somebody else, talk to yourself as if you're somebody else, and give yourself permission, because otherwise they're not going to give themselves permission, right? So sometimes we have to trick ourselves.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, if we're in tricky spots, we have to trick our brain. It's not necessary. It's not even like ourselves, but to me, at least, it's really, I have to trick my brain.
Correct. Change the mindset somehow.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I love what you said, like about boundaries, right? Like and I feel that's such an important part of self-care that's often forgotten, right? Like kind of like the social aspect of self-care, like boundaries, having a support system, like that you can actually go ask for help.
Right.
Community, like we are, like, I mean, COVID showed this, right? We're getting more isolated, and kind of like really those social aspects of self-care have to be taken care of before we can say, oh, I'm getting my nails done as part of self-care,
Right.
because we're actually having bigger fish to fry first.
Correct.
So is boundaries one of those big fishes?
I think absolutely boundaries are huge. I think learning to be able to, so one of the things that is often understood with boundaries is being able to know when to say no to something and what it means to say no, right? So if you agree to something, you want to know that when you think about it later, it's something that you'll actually want to do. And saying no doesn't always mean that it's a bad thing. It might actually be a great thing for you or the person that you're saying no to, right? So if you say yes to something and you don't really want to do it, are you going to do a bad job? Are you going to flake at the last minute? Are you going to disappoint the person that you're saying yes to because you're not all in? Maybe they'd get somebody else better who really wants to do it.
Yeah.
There could be better.
Seeing it as an opportunity for,
right.
It might be better if I say no now, and then having regret about saying yes later on, and or having a worse outcome for both.
Correct.
That's maybe some of you were tuning in, and most of my listeners are self-employed entrepreneurs from the creative space, copywriters, photographers, so on. You might be thinking like, okay, why am I talking to a psychiatrist, like medicine practitioner? Like, where's kind of like the link? And I was so impressed when we talked before our call, what you said about how you do your client intake management, that you not necessarily look at like, oh, okay, I have like 50 free slots, so I take 50 people, but you're actually not going capacity wise, but you're going like energy wise,
right?
Or different capacity wise. Like, do you like how? Do you want to tell us like kind of like the underlying principle of this, how you're managing how many clients you can take on?
Sure. So basically in my medical practice, which you could apply to any business, right? You have a certain number of clients. And when you are full, you stop taking people because you have maximum capacity. But every so often, some clients move on either because you finished your job or because they moved to another city or whatever it is. And now you have space. And so for me, the number of people that I would bring in when I have open space, my space opens based on the concept that my patients are healthier and I have emotional capacity to bring on new people, or because at the beginning of fall, my college students have moved on and they're no longer living in the states that I'm licensed to practice. So I have open space. So when I open up my space, it's not so much the number of slots that I have. When I start getting new patients in, depending on how critical their level of illness is or how much energy it takes for me to process what's going on with them. They're very sick or very in need of my time. So sometimes I can see a patient 3 times and we get them on a medication regimen and they're good and I only see them every 3 months. Sometimes I need to see them every week for several months until we get them where they need to be. So each person's going to be different. And sometimes it's just the emotional toll that they take. I take them home with me at night. It's hard for me to sleep. I'm trying to figure out how to help them. And that weight tells me to say, okay, I'm closing down a little bit and I'm not adding anyone else, because if I'm not sleeping, then I can't take care of the rest of the people that I'm supposed to be helping. I need to pull back a little. And that works for me, because if I don't take care of myself, then I can't take care of everybody else. So there's this line that once I get close to this space that, okay, I am carrying a burden and the burden is heavy. I need to process it and digest it before I can bring more on. And so I think that would happen with any client. If you have a huge client that you feel like is overwhelming and they're asking a lot and you're not sure how to please them, you need to say to yourself, okay, how do I figure out how to wrap my head around this person, their needs, and so on, before I add another person? Because if I disappoint this person, what's happening to my ratings when I'm looking at my social media and they're upset with me? Happen to the next guy. You know, I don't know. I would assume that's similar, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I found it such an interesting concept because I know I had the conversation a couple of times with my clients when there are questions coming up like, oh, how many people should I, like, if I run like a live course, how many people should I let in into the program? How many people should be in a mastermind? How many people should be whatever? It's like, you have to ask yourself, how many people can you build as like a satisfying experience for, and you have the capacity to support in that container. Like, I mean, I know with the work I do, like brand strategy, it's like I get fully immersed in whatever strategic component I'm on. So I know I cannot take on one-on-one clients every week. Like that's not possible for me. It's like, no. So you have to be really honest with yourself. Like, okay, what is really my capacity, and what can I take on, and not just be like, oh, I got another sign up. Might as well have it here. It's good money, and be more mindful of, really protecting yourself, as well as the experience of people, of the quality of the people in, right? And especially in your case, the quality of care, which is I mean, I always I said that before. I'm always like, kind of like when my clients are like super scared of like doing something, I'm like, you know, if you don't post it on Instagram, no one's gonna die. Like, it's so we cannot use this in your case. So I'm like, but it's really how to navigate. So I kind of like have two main kind of questions for you, and I'll start off with the one. And you said like you're taking clients home with you mentally, right? Like you think about, okay, how can I improve this person? How can I improve their life quality? How can I help them? How can I? And I always like I had conversations similar where I had like coaches tell me like, oh, kind of like you have to bottle that in a container and leave it when you leave your office, right? Like kind of like boundaries, blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, sure, it can work for some people, but I don't know. Sometimes when I wash my hair, I have like a brilliant idea, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's more fluid.
Sure.
But still, how do we protect our own energy while we do this concept of not leaving everything at the door?
Right. So
how
there's
do you do it?
Of techniques, right? So some of the techniques are, is if you're working from home, right? You definitely, you physiologically change the atmosphere between home life and work life. Even if you could work in your pajamas, put shoes on. Like change from being like in your casual attire to like a business format. So putting the shoes on can physically create that ambiance that, okay, now I'm in work mode.
Yeah.
You can visually imagine closing one door and opening another door when you walk into that little home office. But having strokes of genius when you're in a shower isn't necessarily invading your personal life. It's a stroke of genius. Have at it, right? That's awesome. Figure out where to write it down when you get out of the shower, and remind yourself that you'll get to it tomorrow.
Yeah, it's probably more intrusive if you're like, oh, I don't know, husband and kid are waiting at the dinner table, but I'm gonna finish this email real quick.
And so then for the intrusive distress worry thoughts that I would have if a patient is plaguing me, one of the things that I would do would be I have supportive colleagues. Like if there's a patient that I can't wrap my head around, then I will call my peers that are in my community and be like, hey, this is my presentation. This is where I'm stuck. How would you handle something in this? What do you think is going? Like, you need to know that there are other people in the community within your world or field that could be supportive, that get it, understand it. And I think in most worlds, there's this belief that there's this competition. Like if I share with someone, then they're going to take,
really take it and use it and steal my clients away from under me, or
but we should, for me, I believe that we can come from a place of abundance, that wherever there is some, there is more. And if we can network and share our strengths and our weaknesses and our vulnerabilities and communicate, then we can also become stronger. So in any industry, there should be a healthy level of competition, but a huge level of collaboration. So if you can build each other up together and open each other's networks to other people, then you're making it better. So
yeah, collectively, right? Like everyone, that's the saying, right? Like rising tide lifts every boat. It's literally that, right? Like if you put collaboration higher than competition,
right,
you just have so many more opportunities. And I don't know,
if it's the middle of the night and I can't call them and it's not getting out of my head, then I'll try to meditate.
Going inwards is usually the way forward. As cheesy as it sounds. Just made that up.
It sounds wonderful.
But it's really like, and I do some of those things. Like I have a morning beginner work song that I kind of have to kind of like get me into the groove. And I have kind of like a ritual I do. Like I clean up my desk before I leave, right? Like so I just know, okay, I put everything away and like, okay, checking out.
Perfect. Exactly.
Yeah, like little things like that. And I never really thought about this way. Like it's something that, I don't know, came natural. It built up naturally like this, but never thought it as like, but that's actually what I'm doing. So thank you so much for highlighting that. And how do we go about those clients who are very like every now and then, I'm curious if you feel the same, but every now and then I have clients. I generally love all my clients. Like I otherwise I probably would not work with them if I feel they're not great humans. And every now and then I'm like really getting close with someone, kind of like, let's meet for drinks, go vacation together, like all the things. I'm up for it. And I love them dearly, and I have to be very, very mindful that it's not their intention, but I'm kind of like letting them become little energy vampires. And they're not doing it, like it's not their intention, but it's just, I'm using kind of like way too much energy on them than what is good for me.
So I guess let's start with two different things. The energy is spent being their friend, or their energy is spent that now that they're your friend, they're inserting business questions during the friendship.
Ooh. Let's say the later part. Inserting business questions during the friendship.
Then as that friendship evolves, what might need to happen is that you set the boundaries of business happens during business time, friendship happens during friendship time. So like, for example, this evening, time change, you and I, right? I will be taking my staff out for our annual holiday party.
Oh, lovely.
And there will be no business discussion. There will
no
be
shop talk.
Just social. And so that boundary gets set, right? So if you're developing a friendship with a client, then when you're being social, it's just social. When you're doing business, it's business. You would want to separate the two spaces if this is a person that you'd want to pursue a friendship with, a genuine friendship, right?
Yeah.
If you're being social because you're networking with the person, then business sort of could happen on an outing.
I guess
But
so, yeah.
the relationship. So if you're saying, okay, I'm going on vacation with this person and I really like this person, you guys would want to have that conversation about as friends, it's fair to both of us if we keep business in one space. That way we can keep records and notes and make sure that things get followed through and it's appropriate. And then when we're together, we could just enjoy each other. Like,
yeah.
That. And then there's no resentment and feeling like you're working harder than you need to for somebody. And good friend, they should get it and understand it, right?
Yeah, I'm not worried that they wouldn't get it, right? It's just something that creeps in and you're like, you realize like, oh, what am I doing? Wait, no. It's, I don't know, or at least to me, it's, there are moments it sneaks up on you, I think. Yeah, that's really, I feel that's really, I've liked how you put that, and that's probably where like the medical professionality comes in, right? For us in the creative space, it's almost blurry, I feel, but it's really that, like, let's create accountability where we have records, we have notes, we can follow through, we have a consistency. I really like that, and I feel it's a great benefit for us in a creative space to be like, hey, let's actually be mindful of that. Not to say we cannot be professional without it, but it just makes it a lot easier.
Right, but so
to have hard conversations.
Someone's paying you for your time. You obviously are educated. It takes energy and brain power to do whatever it is that you're doing. Why do you want to do that when you're hanging out on vacation? That's not vacation. That's not fair. So be like, come on, let's go have a drink. And I can't do that when I'm drinking. So let's wait till we're back.
Or I can do it better when I'm drinking. Who knows? That's again where creative space. Like, okay, maybe we can. Maybe the whole copywriting comes a little bit easier if you're. I'm kidding, but yeah, no, it's. I really like the point of fairness that you've raised, right? Like it's. We often, especially as entrepreneurs, we're always kind of like looking, oh, what is fair? Like for them, right? Like, are they getting a good deal with working with me? Are they getting the appropriate care? What is fair? But we hardly ever apply this really and fully to ourselves. And I just also got like, oh yeah. And then like mom components, like, oh, okay, fair. Whew. What is fair? Ooh. Ooh.
First thing, fair and equal are never the same.
Oh, right? Yes, agreed.
Secondly, what is the standard of care in your industry? If you're giving them a standard or above, then you're obviously giving fair, right? And so then when you establish a business relationship, what are their expectations? Have you established what they expect for whatever they're getting? And if you're giving it to them, then it's fair. Right? Didn't you agree? Okay, I'll do this for you. And if this is what you need, did it include all these extra things? No. Yeah. So then why are you questioning it?
Because that's the big question, right? Like, what is the story that plays and that keeps you over delivering, right? I see it so often with my clients. They have contracts in place of like, you pay me this, I deliver this, right? Pretty straightforward. And sometimes you have a byproduct that manifests when you do something and you're like, here, have it. Okay, fair enough, right? But I don't know, I sometimes have so many clients who are like, oh, and then I like did this. And I'm like, well, but that was out of scope. Like, why did you? Yeah, I felt like I don't know. But why? What is the script that is playing or the conditioning that is playing that keeps us kind of like over delivering? And
A couple of things probably. One is that they're hoping that they'll get this better rating, that they're like
Oh,
amazing.
okay. Better approval, higher
Right.
approval. Mm.
Another one is a little imposter syndrome, that they feel like they have to
Oh,
be better, right? That they're
okay. I'm
not.
not good enough. I have to work extra hard or extra more or whatever. Mm.
But strangely enough, often when we over deliver, we then present as undervalued, right? So if we give more for less,
Mm-hmm.
then people often strangely believe that then we're not as good as we might be, right? Sort of like you can go and buy
Yeah,
a dress at
it's
this store versus that store, right? And so somewhere between the middle and the high end, the value is considered more appealing than the one at the low end for a majority of people. And the same thing would go for a product, any product. You are a product, right?
yeah.
So if you're constantly adding or discounting yourself,
That's a
making
good point.
you're,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You can add a
Yeah,
promotion, but it's
sure. But
different than just giving things away free, constantly past what you've agreed, even if, especially if they're happy with what you're giving.
yeah, and it's also like, I mean, if you do the promotion, yes, but that's different, right? Like that's if you do the promotion, fine. If that's a marketing thing you want to try, fair enough. But it's really interesting that we do that, or some of us have experience with that, and I think every one of us had occasionally had kind of like over deliver. We're all humans, and kind of like, oh, maybe I don't know, she likes me more, or she refers another client, or whatever it is, and it's surely a good thing to kind of like pause yourself and really ask like, oh, okay, why am I doing this? And if you see it as a repeating pattern, maybe look closer and really be like, okay, what's going on here?
If your service is timed and you go over, and you do not charge for the first time that you go over because it was unintentional by both of you, you could always acknowledge, we went over for this time.
Yes.
I'm not charging this time, but should we go over next time, there will be a charge. It allows them to be prepared that if they take longer to get their needs met and you to collaborate, they're prepared for that, as opposed to, oh, we met for an hour and a half, we agreed to meet for an hour, here's an extra $300 bill for the extra 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And like, you didn't tell me if I went, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
is a nicer way to kind of segue into, my time is valuable, as is yours. So either we stay within our time frame in the future, or you will be billed for that. That is another.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, there are very few people in my experience that are like, that don't get it. If you like, if you openly communicate whatever it is that you plan to do in your business, I had very, very few people who are like, oh no. Right. Like it's really boils down, and that's also something that we heard 1,000 times, like clear communication and expectation management, right? Like, oh, I know. She told me she'll gonna charge me for that half an hour. It's cool. She was very gracious. She didn't bill me the first half an hour, but yeah, I get it. Like she also wants to make money. So there we go. And like really, yeah, the more you can be clear about that, and really maybe also walk through your client journey where you're like, oh, okay, maybe I when they sign a contract or they fill in their application form or whatever, wherever is the space to kind of like add in those boundaries of like, hey, you know, if you write me an email, I'll answer you within 48 hours and not like 6 hours, because that's not how I operate. Whatever, right? Like we're free, and that's where a lot of like probably our old corporate world conditioning comes in to define how we want to do business, and then little things creep in of, oh, but maybe I should this too, so she gets more worth, more value, whatever, or other things like, oh, and that's another component, oh, but this person offers 12-hour with it feedback within 12 hours. I only do 24. Maybe I should also do 12.
At
that
what cost
comparison night is.
or them?
Yeah.
Great. And what is the quality of the 12-hour turnaround compared to your 24-hour reflection?
Yeah.
And
Or maybe they have a big team so they can actually do that. You don't know, or not necessarily know.
And
also
it's a
it doesn't matter.
24-hour grace. You could still do it in 2 hours if you had the time and the ability. It just
Yeah.
means you're given 24 hours to respond, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, in my office, you get a letter. Let's say you need a letter for school or a letter for whatever. It's 3 business days. Typically, we do it within a day, but there are times that either I'm out or my office manager, who actually edits my letters, is out, and we need a day or two to kind of get it done.
Back into
So
office
we
group.
give ourselves a grace period just in case, but typically our norm is 24 is a business day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you pleasantly surprise people, right? When they have it in the mail the next day, they're like, oh, that was fast. Whereas if you say, oh, you have it next day, they're like, oh, okay, I had it in the mail, cool. Like, yeah, they said, so they just deliver it. And you're like, oh, wow, she was really attentive. So, oh, thank you. Like, it's already creating a more positive effect on you.
And then if you can't meet the 24-hour because of something, right? Then now you
have a bit of slack.
Right. So creating a reasonable time frame for yourself, inserting incidentals, and then doing better is better than creating a time frame that's really tight and then disappointing.
Oh yeah. Oh, always. I mean, that's universal, right? I mean, if it's always too tight, like there's especially like the ones that were super tight, you always planned like super tight. I remember like when I was at university and like I was like, I still have time to hand in that paper. There was always something. There was always something, and I would be scrambled, running all over the place, like I don't know, like yeah, no. I gladly can say I matured from this. I matured. I'm no longer doing that. But I learned it the hard way. So, but I guess that's fine. Like we're all coming, I don't know, again, meeting in different situations and just trying our best. That's what it's about, right? Like having just trying our best, and especially with boundaries, like, and it's also finding how would like, is it the same like when you start like boundaries go where would you start, like if you someone who really struggles with setting boundaries, would we say you go to the one that comes like easiest to you? How to identify the one boundary that you could set the easiest, so you can kind of like grow your boundary muscle and get used to growing your boundaries and protecting your boundaries?
I think you start with the safest people and you let them know that you're struggling with this, and tell them that you are trying to set safe limits for yourself. And these are examples of things that you're going to try to do. And so if you say no, could they graciously, respectfully hear you the first time and not give you the face or whatever, or the come on, or practice the come on and see how it fits and how they can assertively push back, right? And so saying no comes with all different kinds of ways. You could say, I can't today, but I could next week. So it's a no, but you're offering an alternative, right? Or you could say, I can't, you always ask me, why don't you ask Jim this time? He hasn't done it in forever.
Yeah.
And
I'm doing that with my mom.
Right? Or it could be, oh, I so appreciate the invite. That's so lovely. I'm overcommitted at this point in time, maybe next year. But you're thanking them for the opportunity, right?
Yeah, which is nice. They thought of you to solve something for them. Right. And you can show gratitude for that and still saying no.
Right. Or you could say, I can't do that, but I could do this, right? So if they're asking you to do one thing, and you could say, I can't do the huge, I can't run the program, but I'm willing to volunteer that day.
Yeah.
right?
Or I could do a module of the program,
Right.
but you need someone else to run the program or
Right.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah,
So
those
there's
are
a
very
handful
elegant
of ways
ways.
to say no, or you could just say no. It's a full sentence.
That is very true.
And so one of
a
the
hard one for a lot of us.
ask yourself, if you say yes, what will it feel like a few days from now? That yes, will it be something you're excited to do, something that you're happy to do, something that you're neutral about? If it's something that you're not happy, excited, resentful, if it goes from neutral to resentful, the answer is no, right? No, like no.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember my old business coach, she always kind of like said, unless it's a hell yes, it's a no. Kind of like as a general rule of thumb.
In life, there are things that we need to do, I believe, that are not that I don't always believe. I know they say that all the time. Me personally, I don't always believe that applies, especially when we have children and we have family members that need us and love us. You can't say no, sorry, I'm not helping you get dressed in the morning to your 2-year-old because you don't feel like it and you're setting boundaries. That kid needs your help. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and even there, right? Like you cannot like, well, I don't care, go out the street naked. Unless you live somewhere where it's really warm, I suppose. But like it's really, but even then you can ask yourself, okay, why do I not want to do it? Like what boundary or what of my balance is I don't know, getting unaligned and finding a way to still kind of like do it. Is it maybe you just need to pee first because you really need to pee, or do you need your morning coffee first, or is it always just really stressful, so you put on socks and bottoms upstairs and jacket and thing downstairs, so you break it apart? I don't know, whatever. Be playful, creative about it, make it a game somehow.
Pick the clothes out the night before instead of in the morning. Look at the weather and say, okay, what goes with you? Pick it out. It's this weather. You know, find whatever creative way to make it not stressful to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Change the way your mind kind of processes it if you can.
And showing yourself grace if it's not possible some morning. And you just gotta, I don't know, suck it up and do it. Those there are seasons where that will be the case, right? Like,
and if you have a partner, then you tag team, and that's your boundary. You say, I don't like getting him dressed in the morning. It's exhausting to me. So we're splitting this job. But I will happily brush his teeth at night and put him in his pajamas.
Yeah. Or just even asking him, like, how do you feel about dressing the kid in the morning? Is it stressful to you?
Right.
Maybe he says, no, actually, I never had really problems. Because I mean, our kids are always they're never the same.
Agreed, between parents.
Yeah. So maybe that's easy. Again, clear communication.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, I love this. These were some really good, very practical tips on how to say boundaries and how to graciously getting out of situations that we do not want to get into, and how we can say something else than just no. Although no, as we agreed, we learned no is a full sentence, and it's totally okay to just say no. Hey, Randie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me on the Scenic Route podcast. Before I let you go, like let listeners know, where can people find you? Are you on social media? Where do you hang out?
Sure. So I have an Instagram account. I think it's silver.spaces. And then I'm on Facebook. I think it's Shrinky Potter, or vice versa. So Shrinky Potter, because I am a shrink and I'm a potter. So we talked about balance and creativity. So I do pottery. That's my
I love it.
grounding technique. And so I have a website, silverspaces.org. That's where I run my women's groups and retreats to help women find balance and address stress and burnout. So those are the places to find me.
Perfect.
And shrink because I'm petite. You can't tell that on here. So it's like a double.
That's true. Yeah, weird. That got missed. And one last question before I let you go. What book are you currently reading?
What book am I currently reading? I am not, but I'm told I'm supposed to read Hours and then and because I think it's it's going to be a musical. I think it's a book and then it's a movie or a series. And then my friend recommended to me. Now I think it's becoming a theatrical version. And then Braiding Sweetgrass is something that I was going to read.
Yes.
My siblings and cousins
can recommend Braiding Sweetgrass.
But
it was really a nice perspective on the creative life from more of a nature biology point of view. Okay, Hours. I'm gonna look that up. Always interesting. Always can like add things to my stack. So I'm like, oh.
Right.
So I don't have to think what I'm gonna read next. I'm like, oh, Randie said this book, so I'm gonna check it out. So again, thank you so much for being with me on the Scenic Road podcast. It was a blast. Thank you so much, Randie.
My pleasure.